Hello, 1 grand coffee and a ham and cheese for Squatters. Thanks.
You don't want the bad joke?
Coffee, bike riding, vlogging. I just outside got stuck in my pedals on like an incline and like slowly toppled over onto my right side. Lots of people around, lots of laughing. I'm fine. Just goes to show how unbelievably unimmune to crashing I am, even when I'm really putting all my thought into it.
All right, so you're all familiar with my Tri-Cross. You know, the bike that I always pretend that I'm doing super groundbreaking things with. Even though people have been riding drop bar bikes off-road forever.
Yeah, that one. That one right there.
Well, this bike has some wheels on it that I've talked about in the past, and it's kind of sparked some interest in like what my approach to a good wheel is, or like what I would do to build a wheel for a bike that would take a beating or just be used for like commuting. And then for some of us, we're just generally interested in this type of like nerdy bike talk. So without further ado, this is the Spindatt guide to having a wheel that performs adequately and will take a licking and keep on ticking whilst not being like too expensive without being cheap. That was more difficult than I thought it would be, but I think the first take is probably fine. So before I get into this, I think it's worth noting that everything I know about quality of wheels or wheel building or just like components in general all came from this book. If you're interested in bicycle wheels whatsoever, this book is worth a read. It will basically teach you everything that you possibly need to know and should hopefully shed some light on the like science of wheel building. Okay, so for no particular reason and in no particular order, I'll begin with rims. When it comes to rims, you should really be looking for a box section style rim, double wall, if you'd like to put it that way. Basically what that's going to do is just create a stronger rim itself. In the spoke holes of the rim, eyelets are definitely a bonus. It'll sort of disperse the load of the spoke's tension a little bit better than a rim that doesn't have eyelets. However, you can get a nice rim that doesn't have eyelets. And if you're getting into a rim that doesn't have eyelets, you're going to want to look for one from a reputable brand that has some sort of literature somewhere that says that these rims can be built up to a higher tension than something else. If you can't find that kind of info, then maybe that's not the box section rim that you're looking for. Really, when it comes to a good wheel set for all different types of riding, you can get away with pretty much all of the usual suspects for brands. Go for something that's slightly wider than the traditional really narrow 700C wheels, just so that when you decide you want to put a bigger tire on there, you do end up with that nicer tire profile. And then spokes. Spokes seem simple, but there are a lot of different options. Simply put, for a general wheel that you want to beat really hard, I like to go for a spoke that has rolled threads, so there's no material removed, so that you know that thread area is as strong as possible. A butted spoke, so that it takes the flex in the middle of the spoke instead of at either joint, at the bend or at the threads. And go J-bend, because you're always going to be able to find a shop that has some butted J-bend spokes. For hubs, I really find that any mid-range alloy hub from any reputable brand will really do the trick. And then like the spokes, because you want to go J-bend, you're obviously going to want a hub that uses J-bend style flanges. For a wheel that you're going to use for general purpose and it's going to get a lot of beating, I do like a hub that uses loose ball bearings. And this is because it gives you full serviceability and it does offer better side load capability And then further to that, you actually have full preload adjustment on your bearings, unlike one that uses sealed bearings. Loose ball bearings are significantly cheaper to replace, so overhauling a loose ball bearing hub is going to be way cheaper and way easier once you know how to do it, and trying to source sealed bearings for a sealed bearing hub all the time. The tools are also easier to come by, the work is easier, and overall it's just a cheaper setup to have to beat up on all the time. And finally, easily the most important part of any wheel build, whether it's a general wheel that you're going to use for everything like I do on the Tricross, or even a race wheel, the build is easily the most important part of any wheel setup. These days, it's not the quality of the parts that are put into wheels that create failures. It's the quality of the build that went into that wheel that causes failure. Wheels should be built up very patiently and slowly by someone who's going to take the time to add very equal tension to each spoke as they go around. All of those spokes should be brought up to the highest safe tension that all of the parts used in the build can handle. That is what's going to create a strong, reliable, and long-lasting wheel. Not just spending a ton of money on really nice parts and throwing it together. It's the build that makes the difference, not necessarily the parts. I'd like to add a disclaimer here that this is purely my opinion about bike wheels that I like to beat the living crap out of, and not wheels that I would use necessarily for road racing or race use by any means. And it's the build quality of the wheels that are on the Tricross that will ensure that they keep rolling smoothly for a long, long time to come. Long enough that they'll probably end up having the sidewalls run thin enough by the brakes that they'll inevitably fail on me. Okay, this video was incredibly general, and I basically did it because I had a couple people email me to ask about this subject a little bit, and I wanted to throw something together really quick, basically so that I could get my ideas out there a little bit. But I think this will sort of spawn more talks about wheels and other stuff. So I figured this is a good place to start talking about wheel stuff, and then we'll just kind of snowball from here. There's a reason why I didn't get too deep into it. That's just because there is so much to wheel building that I really do suggest that you do try and read this. I'll link it down below. There's actually like a free PDF version of this. I'll also link to like the hard copy book because reading books on like a tablet or on your phone is just terrible. But anyway, this is not the end of talking about wheel builds because I really do love doing it. But this is just the beginning. But for now, I'm going to head home and continue vlogging the way home. I hope it doesn't seem like I'm just continuously bashing like boutique and high-end wheels and bikes in general. I mean, I guess I am sort of, and it's probably what I'm most known for as like a cycling YouTuber or a YouTuber in general. But I just don't feel like if you're gonna build a strong and like reliable set of wheels for a bike like I'm riding right now, that you don't necessarily need to like remortgage your house to get into something that's going to be strong and reliable. This is like me saying I don't want really nice wheels or like super expensive carbon. Those would be a fantastic thing for me to have on a race bike, but they would not be appropriate for what I do with this. And that's all I'm really getting at. So I've been summoned to get some beer for nachos, which are being made right now. Sometimes it takes making a vlog after work to realize how boring my domestic life can kind of be.